Okay.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm going to open the October 22nd public hearing and meeting of the Newton Planning Board, and we will start with the salute to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, our first item on the agenda is a public hearing. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I need to appoint Representative Allen as a voting member in Mr. Holland's absence. Thank you. First item on the agenda is a public hearing for S&H Walker Woods Holdings LLC for a conditional use permit for an accessory apartment at 145 South Main Street. Property is referenced as tax map 14, block 1, lot 4-2. I believe Mr. Zilch is here to present the plan, and I want to thank you for giving such a complete application.
Oh, good. Well, that's a good way to start. Well, I bought you a packed house tonight, by the way, so a bunch of
Mr.
angry
Zoll.
butters for you. But
Mr. Zilch, did you bring the plans with showing the parking
I
area?
did. Well, this plan here, I could leave this with the board afterwards,
Okay.
and I'll get you, however many additional sets you need afterwards.
I need
Just
two.
two? Okay, I'll get them over to you then.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, pretty straightforward. Again, Charlie Zilch from SCC and Associates. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, which is S&H Walker Woods Holdings LLC. David Story, who's with me tonight. And the owner, which is SCC Realty Trust, Terry Trudell, who is not with us tonight. And this is a request as stated for a conditional use permit for an accessory apartment. The property is the recently subdivided street lot subdivision for SCC Realty that you guys had reviewed this past spring. It's located at 145 South Main Street, has its own street number now, and the tax map number is tax map 14, block 1, lot 4-2. Like I said, this is one of the lots within that subdivision. It's 1.87 acres with 150 feet of frontage on 108. The lot's entirely within the residential A zone. The lot is accessed by a shared driveway. As you may recall, we had shared driveways off of 108. This one happens to share the driveway with the abutting lot to the left, as well as the lot out in the back. So this was the one driveway that had three access points, or three people accessing from it, I should say. The proposal is really quite simple. It's construct a single-family dwelling with an integrated accessory apartment. It's going to be served by its own individual on-site septic system and well. And as you can see from the septic design, it lends itself quite nicely for drive-under on the left side. The septic system's right in front of the house, stone and pipe leach field, size for the 3 bedrooms as well as the 1-bedroom accessory. The well's located out back. Everything meets all setbacks. No issues with that. There's plenty of room with the building envelope, so we're not tight to any property lines, any wetland setbacks, anything of that nature. The application is, I believe, complies with your requirements for the conditional use permit. I'm asking for no waivers. There's no variances required. The only one state approval is for the septic design. This has been approved by your town health officer and is currently at the state under review. Just sent it up the other day. So I wouldn't imagine there'll be any problem with the state. We meet all the state's requirements as far as sizing the tank, the field, setbacks, et cetera. Any questions?
Are you in the process of getting a driveway permit from the state?
The driveway permit's been issued. That was part of the subdivision.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
And so that's the septic design. We did provide you with copies of the architectural renderings. As you can see, it looks just like a single-family home. The ADU is on the right-hand side. This is the rear elevation. Has access, I think it had access to the rear. Just the rear, and through within the building. And then the next one here, your side elevations. There's your drive under. The accessory apartment will be on the left side. And then your first floor with your living space, accessory dwelling unit over here with access into the single-family home. And then again, your second floor, the one bedroom, its own bathroom, and again, access, its own individual access, as well as access through the dwelling.
I put it in everybody's place this evening, the circuit rider's opinion.
Does anyone have any questions?
Well, I don't particularly have a question on his application. My question was, when we broke that up, there was certain, like, drainage and everything, and all the driveways, and there was culverts and whatnot for that whole frontage.
Correct.
Does that show on here? Like, are they gonna, where is that on here that they're
It's
gonna?
not on here because they haven't showed that front part, because they're not doing anything with that, they're just building the house. That's, I think that's already constructed, is that correct?
Portions have been constructed, yeah. There's, the closest adjacent, there is an infiltration pond located near the driveway over there that at some point that's going to be constructed as well.
So do all those have to be done before they get an occupancy permit? Because that was a stipulation of the subdivision previously. It was a conditional on the, I believe, that subdivision plan.
We'll have to check on that. Okay, if that, we'll check on that and make sure whether
I
that...
don't believe it was a condition per se, but it was part of the approval of the subdivision, so yes.
Right.
So we'll have to figure that out.
I just want to say, that was not a condition of approval.
But like Jen
But
said, it was
it
part
had-
of the
It was
approval
in
of
the-
the
on the
The
plan.
overall
drainage,
drainage,
all
It's
the-
part of the subdivision plan,
Right, and
yes.
it will need,
Right,
it will need to be done. Right,
Right.
right. And I did request that they show the parking for the accessory apartment, which I see that you put on there.
Yep, there's...
Either
it's-
side, whichever side they decide to
Yeah,
put it on.
either side, additional parking. Like I said, you have garage parking underneath for, that could be for either the apartment unit tenant or for the main dwelling, however they want to do it. And then there's plenty of parking you could put on either side of that driveway, that access coming in. Like I said, these are pretty generous building envelopes, and it lends
Right.
itself quite nicely there. There's relatively flat right off of that access, that shared access.
Right.
technically, even without those little jogs on the driveway, if you have a two-car garage and a driveway that can hold two cars, you've met the
Oh,
requirements.
I understand that. I just thought it would be easier if it was shown someplace where everybody didn't have to move their cars for stuff, to people to
I
take their
understand the
cars out of the
practical
garage.
point.
Yes, yes.
So there's a garage in the basement?
Yes.
You can see it on the side elevation.
Oh, okay.
Which is on this end of the house, right
Yeah,
here.
yeah, right.
Yep.
And then there'll be a walkway from the driveway to the front and back doors.
Yes, exactly. So you'd step up to the front, that'll be built up a little bit. The back could be built right down to, you could even almost have a walkout on the backside if you wanted to.
Yeah,
Depends on, once they get into the construction, what they want to do, what they elect to do.
Okay.
Because the accessory apartment doesn't have access to the basement level, right?
I don't believe it has direct access.
Because looking at the stairs, it looked like
I don't think
the
it does.
the only way down was from the
I think
main
you would have
house.
to, you'd have to go in through the residential unit or
Yeah.
through the garage.
Okay.
Do I have a motion to take jurisdiction?
So moved.
Second. Is that Roger and Jim?
Yeah, and Jim White. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous, thank you. Does the board have any further questions? No? Jen?
My only comment is if we get to an approval, that the septic permit be issued by the state. Should be a condition of approval.
Okay.
And you're more or less saying we don't have to make a condition of approval that all that other work get done first, 'cause
No,
it's gonna have
that's
to be done anyway.
that's part of the subdivision. It's not specifically related to this conditional use permit.
Okay. Do you have any abutters? Are you the potential homeowner?
I'm their real estate agent,
Oh, okay. All right.
so I say
Okay. Welcome. Okay, so if there's no further questions and no abutters, I would like to have an emotion to approve.
So moved.
With the condition of the
State
storage.
septic approval.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and who seconded that?
Barry.
Aaron, thank you. All those in favor?
All right,
Unanimous, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
the consideration.
And if, like I said, if you could leave that plan and maybe provide us with an 11 by 17, that would be great.
Actually, no, I
I'll
need
do
two
so.
more of those.
Oh.
I need two more of those, and actually, two 11 by 17s would be nice.
You know what, I'll wait till the state approval comes back, and I'll give you the copy of that. That'll have the state
By the
stamps
way-
on it, as well as the town. And it shows the
What do
parking
you
as
plan
well.
to record? The plan, you want the plan recorded or the final approval recorded?
Let's see, what do we want recorded?
he's not-
No, you don't record accessory dwellings. You can
besides
record
it,
the
you're
notice
not-
of
you're not gonna
decision if
get-
you want.
Right.
It doesn't show the whole,
It doesn't show the whole
site.
boundary of the
Right.
site. They
Right.
won't even record
Right,
it.
that, okay,
Okay, so we should record
the notice
the
of
notice
decision.
of decision so that it's in the records that that is an approved accessory apartment.
Right, tax purposes and in case my
Correct.
apartment wants to
So
live
that,
there.
yeah, right,
Legally.
yes. So we will do that. We will be recording the decision. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, I will close this public hearing,
At what time?
7:12.
One thing before they leave.
Oh, yes,
Oh, I just wanted to ask Charlie. Let me go over and speak to
yeah,
him.
go ahead.
So Jen, are you doing this one?
I didn't get one of those. What is it?
I only had a couple of them, but I can email them around as well.
I think I already got that in something else.
Okay, thank you. All right, next on the agenda is the acceptance of the minutes of September 24th. I have a motion for the minutes.
Move to accept the minutes of September 24th?
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you, that's unanimous. And NEPA manifest?
Just so you know, that is the monthly expenditures for October.
Okay. Good. So this is,
It's
request-
all listed on the front
Yeah,
page.
I see that.
That's already been signed and submitted, I just didn't make a copy of the signed one.
Okay, that's fine. All right, this is, okay.
There is on file if anybody wants to look at the October operating budget expenditures.
What was the total?
The total is $588.35.
Thank you.
All right, this is the NEPA expense manifest for abutter notices and legal notices in the amount of $203.17.
Is that for this one? For,
NEPA, yeah.
yeah. Move to pay?
Who seconded?
Andrew Sanders.
Jim, whatever.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you, that's unanimous. Okay. Budget. Who gave me a budget sheet? What did I do with it? Who gave me a budget sheet?
Would you like my little one?
Yes. So, um, this is coming up, so we figured we would get a little bit of a head start on the budget. And so we,
They'll
Moved
be
a few
glad to
things
see the
around.
deduction.
I'm sorry?
Said they'll be glad to see the deduction.
Yeah, well, yeah, we tried to be good. So if you could,
I'm
if you,
good with
Mr.
it.
Goddard, if you would explain where we shifted some things around, please?
Okay, which, I took last year's budget, I took this year's actuals, and things that are actually still coming up, and just discovered tonight that one of these numbers has to change. Advertising, I left the same, that's the advertising cost for when we do our own public hearings for zoning adjustments or for regulation adjustments.
What's this up to, the year-to-date?
So far, year-to-date, we spent $245.
No, what's the timeframe?
Calendar year,
It's calendar year, it's from January 1st.
I know that, but you, take advertising,
The
5497
the date's down in the lower right-hand corner.
as of 10/17, okay.
We actually will have, if we do put anything on this year's warrant,
Okay.
public hearing notice would actually overexpend that line. The next line is the circuit rider contract, which, as you can see, it could go up this coming year. We've got a very narrow tolerance.
The circuit rider rate is not going up for starting on July 1st for that calendar year. So unless you want an increase of service, that should be.
Right, but we only have $318 differential between the actual this year and the potential for next
okay.
year. So that's not, that doesn't
Okay.
Yeah,
allow.
so if the contract goes up more than $600, we won't have enough.
No, that's my point though, is that the rate, unless you want to increase the number of hours of service you're getting, the contract amount for next year will be the same as this year.
Oh, okay,
okay.
that's good to know.
You've already set the
They've
contract rate
They've already
for
set the amount for this coming
Okay,
for
July, basically.
fiscal '21.
Yes.
Well, that ties into the next item. The next item, the 419-1129 account, always was just consultant services. However, the board has spoken several times this past year about starting to work on updating the master plan. In talking with Jen, she said chapters can run between $4,000 and $6,000 to update. I took the average and put it, and increased that to 5, and I've already had approved through the bookkeeper, changing that line from consultant services, just plain consultant services, to consultant services master plan, so that it continues as someplace for us to actually be able to look at to meet the cost of doing hopefully at least a chapter a year. The little bit of extra money that would be left over from the circuit rider contract makes a little bit of a cushion for that. Should that, should it suddenly come to, 5250.
Yeah, but that also means that we don't have any money for any other contract, consulting service.
Exactly.
So, is that, are we cutting ourselves too short?
Actually not, because we haven't expended from this
As-
line
we
in the
didn't
past
use
3
right,
years.
we
Right,
hadn't, we
yeah.
didn't use it, so
Right.
Right.
does it stay there for the next year? I don't know, or roll over?
And in the past, people have
So we have-
questioned using it for master plan because it was listed as being consultant services. I took away that innuendo. The next item is the copies and copier. As you can see, where that's $460 was this year's cost for the copier contract. We have a $40 cushion. We know things are going up in price. Dues and subscription, that is our actual cost for the RPC, is the $49.44. I wasn't going to take away the $6 differential. Equipment purchase. At this time, trust me, a new computer is needed in the office. I believe Mr. Hamel was there the other day when I
Yes.
started the computer, and we were talking, he went, "The computer hasn't booted up quite yet." Anyway, the selectmen are putting in a warrant article on the March warrant to see if we can use some of the money from the cable to purchase IT for the town. That would be computers and other peripherals. If that warrant article passes, that $900 will not have to be expended from the budget, and could be reallocated or returned. However, if it doesn't pass,
We still need a computer.
the problem is that we have a lovely Windows 7 computer. It runs beautifully, but every time they come out with a Windows 10 replacement component, the system goes slower and slower because Windows wants you to buy a new computer.
Why haven't we bought one this year?
I'd say we,
We didn't because most of the town hall computers have gone to a lease usage versus a purchase.
Right.
And in order to fit into the categories of requirement for municipal protection, $900 is gonna buy you just your basic computer.
Without any programs.
Well,
Right.
without much. Through the lease program, it's a lot better, however, you can only do the lease on an annual basis. And we're out of cycle. So, either we're gonna spend $900 next year out of this budget, or
Or it could be covered by the town.
Right, it'll be
We'll have to
covered by
see.
the cable monies.
Right.
In which case, that line, there's other equipment that that could be purchased, like a really nice hole punch that can punch more than 10 pages at a time. And I'm not being facetious. Next line is the legal line. We've done very well this year. Only spent $131.75.
Yeah.
However, in the not-too-distant past, that line has been fairly heavily decimated.
Right. There's always that contingency that could happen.
Planning board is second only to the Board of Selectmen in the possibility of lawsuits.
Right.
So I suggest leaving that there. Next line is manuals. This year, it's at zero because I just ordered them. This year's manuals cost us $40. However, there have been some other manuals that have been recommended. And I believe next year, the LexisNexis, I went to their website, because they have some interesting other things. Luckily, Representative Allen and I donate our copies of the land law books to the town, because we receive copies as Rockingham Planning Commissioners. Actually, we donate one. We keep one that we share and donate the other one to the town, and we get two for free from the Rockingham Planning Commission.
Right.
That makes it really nice for us, because I believe that everybody should have one, because
Yep.
the people at this table actually have opened them and read them. I'm not making any further
Right.
comment.
And they come out in March, is that correct?
Usually January
Oh,
is about,
January. Okay,
sometime in January, I'll bring a couple of boxes in for you.
thank you.
So this year it was $40, but that, it may change in the not-too-distant future. And there are some other things. There's a manual that Roger brought to our attention that is very good, and I'll be printing out copies for everybody like I did. Everybody this year got a fresh copy of the zoning regulations. It's all been corrected and straightened out. That was not free. So that $100 is gonna cover that type of material in the future, especially if we can find them to purchase. Okay, office supplies, I've been using up what I have, trying to get stuff down in volume in the back room. However, I believe that come January, there's gonna be a decent-sized staple order going in, and yet I still took $100 out of there. Postage, I took 50 out of postage. As you can see, what, we've spent,
Right.
by the end of the year, we will have spent around 2.25.
Right,
That leaves a little bit extra.
right, there's always a possibility they're going to raise it.
Right. Salary administration, I actually calculated out the hourly rate. Gail and I received the same rate of compensation. I calculated it out for a year, plus the possibility of like the law lecture series, the other things that have to be attended, like the FEMA, flood zone mapping that I attended. And it comes out to approximately $17,500 per year. We had been budgeting a larger number, so I brought that number down. Telephone usage remains the same. Training, however, I've added 100, though, from what I saw, Mike, you attended.
3.
Right, but it didn't show up on our, actually, it must have, okay. I'd like to see more people take more training next year.
Mhm.
And we know that we will probably have at least one new member next year. So I increased that to 5. I'm suspecting it probably would be better to increase it to 6. Because the law lecture, what used to be individual law lectures is now 1 day, and it's $100 for the day.
It's $100 plus travel, right?
Right. Yeah, travel's the next, and that number also has to be increased. So I would honestly suggest that we increase that to $600.
The training or both the training and the travel?
I would increase both,
To 600?
yes.
Okay.
That's going to make it,
Back to your telephone, is that a cell phone or a regular phone?
No, it's
That's a
regular phone.
landline.
That internet with internet?
Yeah, we don't have
Doesn't that
cell
go
phone
under,
in our,
doesn't that go under general funds like all the other departments,
No,
no?
it goes under the operating budget. We get,
For the town though, no?
no.
I thought we took all telephones out of everyone's budget. I could be
Not
wrong.
ours, the planning board gets a telephone
we
bill.
get a telephone bill.
Really?
Monthly from downstairs,
Okay.
from Nancy.
Now, I don't know if it's a.
I could be
not-
wrong,
And
but I
it
thought we
it
shared.
averages right up between $65 and $75 a month.
And that's for a landline.
That's
Yeah.
for a landline.
Right, we don't have a cell phone for our department.
How do they know you have a separate number then? No.
Yes, it comes through as 382-3419.
Why don't you have a 382, what's it, 4405?
4405?
And an extension?
We do that too.
We
There's that too,
do,
but-
that's how the calls
however,
come in.
each phone on that extension, because we're through a company called Windscreen,
Mm-hmm.
They dial direct?
each phone has a discrete number, because believe it or not, we pay for long distance. And a
Maybe we
long
should look at our
distance-
phone bill.
Long distance
Yeah.
is a call to Haverhill, Mass.
Really?
Someone needs to
Massachusetts, right.
renegotiate the
We should, yeah,
telephone
look at that.
contract.
Yeah.
Just gonna
The
say.
whole building, maybe.
I just don't know why it didn't come under the general plan for the town
Put
itself.
it this way, last month, the long-distance telephone calls from the planning board office were $7.36. And most of those were Epping. 2 calls to Epping, there's
Epping
if I call Jennifer,
in
it's a
Exeter.
long-distance
We'll
telephone.
have Jennifer call us
Yeah,
from
just,
now on.
you send me an email, I'll call you back.
I try whenever possible to send her an email.
Okay, no, I was just asking why it was
Text her and
still
say,
there.
call me.
Please find that
I'd
out.
have to look at the other budgets and see if they're
That's
doing individual lines. I forget right now.
handed to us once a
Because
month.
it should be call, town hall, and extension, whatever for you guys.
So how'd it get to be $800 or 500 and something? Is that internet too, or just,
No, that is the,
Again, the
For the-
internet should be under the town.
yeah, because if you said
Put it this way,
$7 for long distance, so what,
as of October 17, it was $544.56. There's going to be at least another approximately $150 added to that,
Right.
which is $694.56.
So we'll just look at the other budgets.
Provided we don't have to make a long-distance call.
Right.
We'll look at the other budgets and see what
calling
they're
Okay,
doing.
yeah.
I mean,
So anyway, with those changes, we would end up with a,
So you gotta bump it up $200 now.
Right,
right,
and
So-
take the other, take $200 out of the other one.
right. So the bottom line
665.
over last year would be a negative $890.
Right.
Right.
And
Right.
I will argue in front of my fellow selectmen that you can't get any leaner than this without going into the negative.
Right,
That's fine. I'm good with it.
okay.
So that would give us a,
You know me, I like level funding, but if you can go below.
well, I know
We
certain other
try to
people,
do that.
budgets went down $500.
Mine went down like 500, but,
Right.
you know, because they're gonna ask me anyway, so yeah.
No, it's already done. Don't come back asking for more.
Right.
So the budget number that needs to be voted on will be $48,265.
No,
No,
665.
665.
You're adding 200.
You have to add 200.
Yes, sorry.
So I'll make a motion
665.
to accept the planning board 2020 budget in the amount of $48,665.
Second.
A second.
What'd you say, no?
Who seconded that?
Mary.
Either me or
Oh,
her.
Mary seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye, unanimous.
I will make those changes and submit it to the bookkeeper on Thursday.
Okay, great. Okay, under correspondence, the zoning board asked 125 Development to come back to the planning board for another new denial because what they presented to the zoning board was not the same as what they presented to the planning board earlier. So they need to come there, and so I talked to the chairman of the zoning board, and we're going to have Tom McElroy, and we're going to have a joint meeting between the planning board and the zoning board on November 12th. Is that the right date?
yes.
I believe so.
Yeah, November 12th, so that they can, if they get all their application and everything in by the time frame that they need to, that they can present it to everybody. The board can do their thing that they need to for their denial because we can't issue variances. And then the zoning board is going to adjourn to the back and have their meeting back there with 125 Development and make their
All
decision.
right, so he called me today. So he got the denial from Dennis, and he got the denial from ZBA. One of those denials were no good, or both were no good?
He got, so, I mean, from the planning board in September, he got the denial from that application that was pretty incomplete.
Okay.
Well, that's the only thing we denied him, right, that his application wasn't complete.
Correct. You did deny that his application was incomplete. If you'll recall, I think everyone got a copy of the memo that I wrote up based on what they had presented about what variances based on that fairly limited information of what variances they at least would need based on what they had presented at the planning board. They got that either just before our September meeting or very shortly after. So what the application they submitted to the zoning board, which honestly I did not see until after the zoning board meeting, looked very similar. It was a much better presentation of what they were looking to do.
Well, the very big difference
It was-
is it specified that it was a subdivision plan.
And not a lot line adjustment.
Right, yeah.
And so that's
It's like,
totally
we never really
different.
even saw the plan,
Yeah,
really.
but we-
Right.
Correct. The ZBA, as one of their procedures, require a denial from either the building inspector or from the planning board, and those can be for different purposes depending on what you're looking for. So I believe I'm correct in saying that's the reason that they were not willing to take up the zoning board application that Mr. McDonough had submitted, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I was not sitting with the board, but I was present at the meeting. And there were two issues that came up. One, the zoning board didn't have a complete board. There were only 2 members who were available to vote at that meeting.
That is an issue.
Because there were 4 people there, but two of us recused ourselves. So they only had 2 people who could make a decision. And the acting chairman said, you know, because the denial did not specify that that the planning board denied a subdivision, and they were being asked to rule on a subdivision, that's what he
Right.
felt like it wasn't.
Because they asked for something different than
Right.
what they presented to us.
So wouldn't the first step that he should come back to the planning board with a plan?
Yes.
So, all right, so you can technically go to the zoning board to ask for variance, or you can come to a planning board and ask for a site plan or a subdivision, and it can be conditioned on you get the variance, or you can do it the other way of you get the variance, then you come and do the site plan or the subdivision. You can do it either way. Your town does have, the zoning board has the requirement of the denial, either from the building inspector or the planning board. So 125 Development Corps decided to go and get their variance first, I suspect, so that they didn't have to do part of the application that you have to go through with the planning board because of cost. It's expensive, you know. So I suggested that the board try to do a joint meeting, so the planning board and the zoning board, so that everybody's hearing the same information. It's the same information being presented. You will have to have 2 separate meetings, but the presentation about what is being asked for, everyone will be in the same room hearing the same thing. So I think that might help speed this process. Now, I don't want to say speed it along, but at least have everyone be on the same page so there's not this back and forth that seems to happen a lot with this applicant.
Oh, yeah, because if he goes to ZBA, then he has to wait a month, then he comes here, he has to wait another month.
But that's why they're willing to do a
Right.
joint meeting to say, okay, then after they present to us, and we will probably need to issue a denial because we can't issue variances on what they want, then they will have their denial, and then they can adjourn and have their meeting in the back.
Just as one of the things that they're asking for is the creation of lots with no frontage. That's something the planning board simply does not have the authority to do. If they go through with that same proposal, which, you know, we'll wait and see an application, that'll also require some select board involvement because of the access of creating a lot with no frontage. There are ways around it. It's a liability waiver from the select board. So there are some complications to it, but to simply take it, you know, 2 or 3 months because of boards just meeting schedule and hearing the same thing, it makes sense to meet at the same time.
Can they go right in to have the, say, planning board, have the denial here, go back there, ZBA?
Yes.
Where's the public notification?
So
What do they notify the public on?
When the planning board gets its application, I would advise Mr. McDonough and his associates to also submit a variance application at the same time so it can be noticed at the same time. You can actually notice a ZBA hearing and a planning board hearing, and the times need to be obviously different because you can't do it at the same time. But that way the cost for the notification isn't as expensive. It can state that the planning board will be having a public hearing on the subdivision application. Variances are known to be required, and I'm paraphrasing, and then a zoning board hearing will take place afterwards, the presentation for both for both applications will occur on this date and time. So you have to notice everything so that it's very clear. It's both boards meeting, that there will be a joint meeting, but these are the applications the two boards are hearing.
So we can all go in one notice.
It can all absolutely go
Okay.
in one notice.
That's good.
So it sounds like the one for the 11th is, or 12th is just a fact-finding thing, like he
No.
won't have an application,
No,
or
no,
you
no.
think he'll have his
So
application?
if he has an application in time, because he has to have that 21 days before there's
Oh.
going to be a planning board meeting.
21 days from now is the 12th.
Tomorrow. Tomorrow's the deadline, right?
Tomorrow
So we're,
at
tomorrow at 3 o'clock.
So if he has an application in by tomorrow at 3, which I believe he was notified a few days ago at least of all
Right.
of these dates, then the planning board can have its public hearing and the zoning board can have its public hearing.
Right,
On the 12th or
on the 12th.
Is there going to be time to get the notice in the Carriagetown News, or was he going to have to go into the Tribune for
It
this
has
one?
to be, if it's in by 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon,
Right.
the chair's already authorized me to come over and to send,
Okay.
Send the
Fine.
notice into the
However-
paper.
posting for the ZBA was not something, I don't handle the ZBA documentation because of Mr. McDonough. So,
I mean, if the zoning board is okay with the notice, I mean, the cost is going to be the same with the notice going in. I can review it tomorrow to see if wording is correct, but that's up to both boards.
Yeah,
Okay. I'll touch base with Tom.
okay. I mean, I don't have a problem doing it, I just.
Right, I'll touch base with Tom. I don't think he's going to have a problem with it.
And the other thing is that if at the meeting, the planning board doesn't issue a denial, for whatever reason, just in case that happens, the ZBA can at least attend and hear what the applicant has to say. So again, you're still at least getting that same information of what they're trying to do at the same time, in the same moment. So there can't be any ambiguity.
Right. And that's actually to their benefit.
Absolutely.
You know, and we tried to accelerate it a little bit by having the joint meeting so that everybody could hear everything and then they could go
Sounds
in the
good.
back. So,
By the way,
trying to be accommodating.
But if it's a big, huge project, we shouldn't push it through just to be
Well,
accommodating.
we're not pushing through it, but it's just
Right,
like,
we
all
should-
these separate meetings and then.
Right, but still, there's a lot to look at if it's that big of
Right.
a,
Absolutely.
Well, and then they have to, you know, I mean, if they have, because of the zoning board's requirement for the denial, that's why they have to come here first for that, and then they will do, and if they get their variances that night that they want, then they'll come back, and they've already given us the application, and then we can go further from then. They come back and talk to us again. Because this meeting would just be for the review of what their application is for, the decision whether to give them a denial or not, and then they would go and meet with the zoning board. And then if they get what they need from the zoning board, then they'll need to still come back to us for us to do our
So-
thing for the subdivision.
But it gives them the opportunity to ask both boards at all at once the questions. So it should run smoothly whether it's a yay or a nay.
but there still is a possibility we might see something on that plan as we review it again that might not have been recognized in his variances that he thought the first time, right?
It is possible. I haven't seen an application. I've
Right.
seen a one-sheet plan, and this is a subdivision that has some road component too,
Right,
which your
exactly.
engineer needs to review.
Right,
It hasn't been to the town engineer yet.
right, exactly. So there is a possibility it might,
It could require a second meeting, but again, you're at least all hearing the same thing
right.
from the applicant at the
But
same.
sometimes that applicant seems to think that he only has to come once, and it's all gonna be hunky-dory, so that's why I'm just stating that possibly,
It
you
it is
know,
a
Well,
possibility.
it's a
you know,
possibility, maybe.
Let's put it this way. Once he gets his variances, he would need to come back to us to say, okay, now we have the variances, this is what we would like to
This
do.
is the plan, right.
Right,
The board in the past has, when they've known something was coming in that was going to be denied, you hold the public hearing, it's fully noticed in all the butter notices. You then hold in abeyance, you give the denial letter, but you do not specifically stamp the plan denied, so that they have the ability to go for their variances and come back at a continuation of the public hearing.
Correct.
We've
We've done that, yes.
They've done that before, so
Right.
they're not having to pay the application fees all over
Right.
again.
Right.
The board has traditionally required that new abutter notices go out for that continuation date. Because we're supposed, the planning board is supposed to continue to date specific.
Right.
So.
Once we take the jurisdiction, we only have this certain amount of time for the whole thing.
Unless they agree to a longer period of time, and that would mostly be, most of the time, that's at their request.
It's to their benefit
Do we
usually.
have executive session here?
No. Well, we
We
can.
don't. Can we, there's a couple things I need to bring up that don't want on TV, which has to do with this.
If you need to go into non-public, you should state the reason why. And then they can turn the
In a
cameras off.
vague term. In a vague, but
So it's just with the conflict with Development 125 in regards to this property, on statements that he brought up today,
Okay, how
that
do
the town
we,
should be aware of.
how do we,
Is it a statement about an elected
In the
official?
visual, yeah, on two of them, yeah.
Then that's one of the exclusions from non-public.
If it's about pending litigation, communications with your attorney, or a personnel matter, then that can be a reason,
Right.
or reasons.
Well, it's accusation of favoritism to other companies that go to these meetings, which just happened recently, last week, unfortunately. I mean, without,
I don't know, is that,
you want me to say it, I really don't want
would
to say it
that
on
be
TV.
reputation? I don't
If,
know.
if you want, I mean, is it,
I could take you out back and tell you, and then you could give me the answer.
will the board excuse us for a couple of minutes? By the way, one thing, the land lecture, land law lectures, my one major takeaway is the fact, and I asked this, Mike was there and got to watch Stephen Buckley in action. We have the ability, the planning board has the ability to accept, deny, and reject. If we receive an application that is fundamentally flawed, rather than denying it, the planning board should consider rejecting it. That way, it doesn't trigger, a rejection, it does not trigger ZBA.
They can revamp their thing and come back.
Right.
Right,
You're deeming it incomplete. So you take jurisdiction with complete applications.
Right.
If it's incomplete, it's incomplete.
Yeah.
Because I thought that's what we did with this one, we denied it as incomplete.
You did deny it.
Right, quite honestly, the planning board shouldn't have taken jurisdiction because it
thought we
was
didn't.
incomplete.
You didn't take
We didn't take
Okay.
jurisdiction.
No.
I didn't think we did.
that brings up a question I had for this joint meeting. So we would have to accept the application as complete and then deny a portion
No.
of it so it could go to the ZBA, or?
So procedurally, what can happen is both boards have to open, you have to say who's voting for what. You let the applicant present their application to the planning board, but the zoning board is there. Then the planning board, and I'll also be doing a review, but then the planning board has to decide, is this application complete? Have they met all of the requirements or asked for waivers that's effectively meeting the requirements? Have they done that? If the answer is yes, then you take jurisdiction over it, and then you can decide on any waivers, or if you need to deny it, or you've got issues, any of that. If it's not complete, then you can deny it as incomplete, and then you need to list out the reasons for which it is incomplete as part of the reason of your denial. So then they can resubmit an application with the actual information. Part of that denial of incomplete can also state, because it also will require you're stating that they also require variances, for example, creation of a lot that has no frontage. So zoning, you have to have certain frontage to create a lot. That can be part of that notice of decision of reasons for denial is you'll need these variances, but your application also did not have X, Y, and Z components.
And see, Stephen Buckley suggested that those should be rejected versus denied.
I guess
It's semantic, but as he explained, and I did look it up in Black's Law, there's a big difference between denied and rejected.
Yeah, if it's denied, then you can't reapply with the same application unless there's a substantial difference to that application.
Right, and
I
that's
guess
why
one concern I have with trying to do it all in one meeting is we're gonna get this
Oh,
application.
no guarantee that this would be all done in
Well,
one meeting.
but it seems like the attempt by having the ZBA there, and I guess my concern is, we get this, say we accept it as complete, and we see, okay, well, this needs a variance. Do we really have time to really look into it to find out that that's gonna be the only thing? Because what I would hate to do is say, okay, you gotta go there for variance, and then he comes back 2 weeks later or a month later and say, well, and we also found these things you need to go get a variance for. I feel like we're putting ourselves
That is
possibly
the
into a...
risk of existence.
That's what I already
I'm
said.
just going to say, I believe that
That
that's
is
what
what I said,
Sandra
yeah.
was talking
Yeah,
about.
I'm just wording it
Yeah,
differently. 'cause
Exactly, but it is a possibility.
Yeah,
So that's part of why it would be in their best interest to submit a complete application, because then you can tell them, yes, you need a variance for X, Y, and Z. And I hope that they do submit an application. It makes it faster for everybody.
I don't know if I would be able to
Yeah,
look at that
Digest it
thing
all in
that
one
first
night.
time and come up with all the issues without looking at it longer and then later on saying, oh, well, wait a minute, we missed this or
right.
something.
Well, you will get the packet. You'll get a packet, so you'll be able to look at it before the night of the meeting,
Yeah,
okay? But,
And that's actually legislatively why the 21 days. It used to only be 15 days, but it got extended to allow, so if there was an incomplete application, town staff or whatever board member might review it in some towns, can notify the applicant, hey, you're missing, maybe it's something small.
yeah.
Sometimes it's really big things. You're missing this. And they might actually have the opportunity to get that information in before their hearing, rather than waiting 2 weeks or 3 weeks to hear that. You don't have this one signed piece of paper. But it also gives me time to review it. It gives time for your town engineer to review it. We can write up letters, and then sometimes that back and forth can help applications be ready to go when they get to the planning board or the ZBA.
right, because we have no way of knowing what the town engineer's schedule is too, and he may not be available right that moment to take a look at it,
Yeah.
so.
But yes, do look at if application is submitted, look at it as soon as you get it, or as soon as you're able to. Definitely don't look at it the night of the meeting. That looks
Right.
bad on boards.
Right.
It happens all the time, but it looks bad on boards.
I have a general question about, like, regional impact. Is there certain, like, criteria about how big a project has to be before, like, it's a regional impact?
It's not specifically a size requirement, but effectively, are you going to be impacting a neighboring community for things like infrastructure, roads, traffic, schools? If 125 Development Corp was to pitch their overall plan, especially all at once, that by most accounts would reach regional impact. We've had at my office regional impact statements for much less than that. If it's a few lots at a time, in all honesty, over a course of years, maybe less so, but it's really, the zoning board can declare regional impact or the planning board can declare regional impact.
I asked that question at the law lectures because for us, regional impact does not go across the state line. At least that's-
No, it doesn't, so.
And the biggest impact of that is essentially going to be right across the state line.
Right.
And he even said it, well, everybody's going to come out and turn south on
Right,
108, and
That's-
it's like, sorry, suckers,
Which is a class, though,
yeah,
New Hampshire.
for a little bit.
yeah.
Well, for quite a while, and then Massachusetts. So
Yeah.
it does impact New Hampshire.
I mean, the regional impact can be natural resource related, it can be water resource related, it can be traffic, it can be taxes, it can be impervious. I mean, there's a whole host, and we've got a set of criteria. I can bring a copy the next time, or forward you guys the link to it if you're interested in taking a look. But regional impacts, while planning commissions are given a butter status and we get to comment and we review it, they're advisory only. They're not going to make or break an application. They may just help the planning board or zoning board frame what decisions they may need to do. And do keep in mind, at least 125's property, their overall property, does extend into Plastow. So they would have to get approvals from Plastow for any portion that might have a subdivision involving that land or any site plans. So they would be involved.
And that's the other balance of that piece of property, not where they're talking about right now.
Not where they're talking about from
Right.
what was presented to the ZBA the other night,
Right.
correct?
Right.
But they're still subdividing the land, the lot that they are subdividing.
Yes, does go into Plastow. Usually when that happens and there's, for all intensive purposes, no impact, the planning board in that adjacent town will say, there appears to be no impact, we have no objection to this subdivision.
Thank you, it's very interesting.
Wow.
Okay, Mr. Foote is asking to go into non-public under 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, subsection C. Matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the public body itself, meaning the planning board, unless such person requests an open meeting, hasn't. This exemption shall extend to any application for assistance or tax abatement waiver fee. C is the proper section to go in under.
Okay. Have a motion?
That was Mr. Foote's
Oh, that's
motion.
my motion.
Do I have a second?
Can I just, before we do this,
Yeah.
the only other thing we've got to do is to, is adjourn after this. But I something I want to bring up in public before.
Okay.
But before we do that.
Okay, there's no second to the meeting, so I'd suggest letting Ms. McCampbell
Yes.
speak.
Okay, just something that came up about possible zoning changes.
Yep, we actually talked back in
Yeah, no,
September about
not that one.
something.
This
Not
is-
that one,
this is-
different.
This is a
Okay.
different item. The old fire station,
Yes,
which is currently in residential,
yes,
but abuts commercial.
yes.
Commercial or village?
No, it's actually, it's commercial.
It is commercial.
There's some commercial between the village and the
You guys have some
daycare
spot
center
zoning.
is commercial, not village. The bank is village, the daycare center is commercial.
And then the.
Are you
and then
wanting
the
to
And the
change
firehouse
how that's
station is
zoned?
residential?
Firehouse is municipal.
Municipal
No,
or
it's not.
residential?
It's residential.
It's residential?
Residential
Yes,
ag.
and what I would suggest is that the planning board to extend the commercial district to include that piece of property.
So
The
if,
warrant article?
Yes,
so yeah, that can be done as a warrant article. The way your zoning is, it's really amending what is Appendix A
Right.
to add a lot. That's a
Right.
relatively simple zoning ordinance to
Right.
write up.
Yeah.
but I would
For you?
suggest that you put together what
Yes.
needs to be done to do that.
That would be good.
The Board of Selectmen was planning on doing that also.
But
It would
zoning
have to be in
changes
zoning.
come from the planning board, not the board of select.
Yeah.
Well, it was, but allow me to just explain the justification. As you saw earlier, our advertising budget is pretty well shot. If we put that in, that's the only planning board-sponsored article.
No, we're going to have the other one to change the time.
Oh, okay.
If you have it so, because this would only involve one lot, you actually would have to notify, and I realize it's
Yeah, we have-
the
yeah,
town, you have to notify the property owner if it's less than 100 properties that will be impacted, you have to notify that property owner, which in this case is the town, of the zoning change. If you guys do want to move forward with this warrant
Okay.
zoning variance and special exception expiration, which we could talk about in a second, we could schedule them for the same date. So there's only one notification, so the
Okay.
cost is less.
Okay, and then,
See, I was going to let the selectmen pay for the notification, but since
yeah,
we're
we
going to
can
have.
put it on the same thing, and that way we can put in the warrant article, and the selectmen can say they agree, they approve, or
So
whatever.
technically, they can't sell that till after the warrant article.
You can
Well, they-
sell
they-
it,
It's a residential piece.
But what if they want to do a business? and-
Well,
They would need a variance.
Actually,
Yeah.
they would need a variance.
yeah,
Right.
they've already spoken to the ZBA.
They get a variance and then it fails in March.
Well, can they get a use variance? They
Yeah.
could get a
Yeah, I
use
mean,
variance.
so if the fire station gets sold to whomever,
Uh-huh,
right now it's zoned residential.
correct.
Because it hasn't been used for any commercial or municipal in quite some time. So if they want to do a commercial business, they would have to go and get a variance from the zoning
So
board.
they get one,
If they get one, they can do whatever they,
then.
to the extent they get the variance.
You're still going to do the warrant article in March? Well, if
It
that
it
fails.
would still be advantageous to get the warrant article in
But
March.
what if it fails?
Doesn't matter, they've still got the variance.
Right, but if.
But if they get the
war-
warrant article passes, then when they go to sell the property,
commercial.
it'll carry on.
Right,
Right.
Mr. Hamel, was that a motion to create a warrant article?
It was a request,
Direction
it was
to
a
ask me
direction
to draft something, you
yeah.
guys can consider it, and if you agree, you can move it to public hearing in December.
Yeah,
then
but
it can.
when we're ready to move the other things to public hearing.
Well, if you're ready to move this, we can
Well,
do
we
that, but
can-
if we
we
want to
do it
hold
all-
off
yeah, we can do
because
it all
of
at once.
this.
yeah, do it all at once, that's good. Do we need to vote on that?
Not at this point, I mean,
Okay.
this is a pretty simple.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right. So Mr. Foote has asked to go into non-public. Do I have a second for that?
Second.
Mike seconds? Okay. And we need to poll the board.
Yeah, you have to have a roll call.
Mr. Andrews?
Yes.
Ms. Estabrook?
Yes.
Mr. Foote?
Yes.
Ms. White says yes. Mr. Hamel?
Yes,
Mr. White? Yes. Representative Allen? Okay, so would you?
I am gonna ask, do you want me to stay or not?
You could stay. It probably involves with,
Right. Okay.
with her now. As far as
It's up to the
unless
board.
variances,
You can ask for her input, the board can invite her into non-public.
Right.
If you wish to have her expert.
I mean, it's nothing
Input.
major, so.
Right. Could you
It's-
go and?
it's up to you guys.
Get him to ask him to turn that off. 'cause
Yeah,
we're
we
going to
should
another-
actually, well, if he
We
turns
can do it
off.
here. If he turns it off, just tell him to turn it all off.
Yeah, it's just a, yeah, you can stay.
We'll have to come back in and adjourn.